typically, I don't know if JP told you, but like us three do DIY woodworking stuff, but all three of us got into smoking and doing barbecue heavily. Like we all do it pretty much. But that being said, nothing like you do, like not even close, And when I watch what you do compared to what we do, it's pretty much, we're just cooking in an oven compared to like what you do.
I'll say now we have like 4 levels. Like I'm very beginner. Mullen's next level.
Yep.
Jesse P's been doing it a lot longer, and now we got the pro on. So.
Well, honestly, man, woodworking is a whole other world too for me. I mean, that like I have a few friends that are. I mean, honestly, once you get into the craft industries in some way, shape, and form, you just start developing friends in other craft industries, and so. Whether it's metalworking and knives and woodworking, I mean, it's so crazy. Like some of the stuff that y'all are able to do and come up with. I mean, it's just a whole other world. I can cook a cut of meat, but I could not repair anything that comes to wood. So,
well, no. we started this podcast because we wanted to talk about woodworking and stuff, but one of our agreements was we wouldn't just talk about woodworking. We were just going to talk about whatever. And as it turns out, most of our followers and most of the people that listen to us, they like the cooking talk, the outdoor cooking talk a lot more than they do the woodworking, as it turns out. So they really appreciate it when we talk about it. And, I've been following you for a long time. I turned these guys onto your social media stuff, your website and everything. So again, we really appreciate you having you on. My neighbor, Brian, and it's a good friend of mine. He will call me every now and then. He's like, hey man, I got lobsters and I got steak for dinner tonight. Be firing up on the grill later. And I sit there for a second. And I'd be like, you've been watching Derek's stuff again, hadn't you? He's like, yeah. every time he calls me and he says he's cooking lobster tails and steak or something, I'm like, you've been watching Over the Fire.
100%. I love cooking lobster. Lobster's a lot of fun too, because there's a lot of ways that you can cook it, and it's delicious, and it also pisses a lot of people off. And so that's like one of my favorite things to do is like, how far can I push it? Like, can I put cheese on lobster and like make it good? Or can I just like drench it in cheese and see how pissed off like Italian?
Oh, that's great.
So no, I mean, dude, I'm no chef. Like, I don't have any culinary degree or background. I mean, dude, I'm just a guy who I'm a pyro and I like to eat meat. So I thought maybe I should start getting good at something and maybe quit my day job. So there you go.
Well, awesome. I think that's what makes it even more awesome is that you're not a chef and you don't have a huge culinary background and you decided just to start doing this kind of like we did in woodworking, and you've killed it, man. It's awesome.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, and we definitely made a lot of mistakes and burnt a lot of food. And man, dude, I burnt myself plenty of times. Like, oh my gosh. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart. And man, I'm an idiot. I keep on coming back to it just because I love it. And I don't know. It's now it's like a part of something that I find joy in, and that was where it came out of. Like working in a corporate job, and I didn't have anything that I really looked forward to, and I just wanted to cook, or I don't know. I loved campfires and all kinds of stuff, and so basically watched a South American chef cook over open pit fire, and I thought, man, I think I could do that. I mean, this guy's like, celebrity chef, but I think I could do it. And so next thing I knew, started a page called Over the Fire Cooking, and a year later, 2 years later, or a year and a half later, I was able to quit my job and just went full time. I wasn't even making any money then. And we just went for it. And it's been kind of a blast ever since. So it's been a lot of fun, but it's weird to hear people say anything about me having any form of culinary like skill. Because that's not like that's, I made my joke in college was I make a mean bowl of cereal, and that was it. And now it's obviously different.
Yeah. That's
well, I think that people probably think that because it's, more than what you do with meat over fire, but you also come up with some really good side stuff like your chimichurri, how you say it? Is that right? Chimichurri. Thank you. And like the salsa verdes and all that other stuff that you come up with to put on top of the meat and everything else. I don't know. It gives it a lot more of a dynamic than just throwing some stuff on a grill. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I always say, I actually had a really good friend of mine in town. His name is Brad Prose. He runs an account called Chilies and Smoke, and he's way better cook than I am. And we were just talking and joking. And I was like, honestly, half of the reason I love cooking is, or grilling in that matter, is because I love sauces that go with a lot of the food that I eat. And so I know that's almost sacrilegious because everybody's like, no, you got to love the meat. And it's like, I mean, I love it. Like, it's great, but like, I don't know. Most steak, unless there's something absolutely eccentric and special to it, is all great. But like the sauce for me is what really distinguishes a lot of the flavor profile or helps to accentuate it a lot. So, because a lot of people are very simplistic with their seasonings. So they're all only salt and pepper. And I'm just like, man, I mean, yeah, I have some crude jokes about that, but like you got to go further than that. Like you got to go further. Just because it's good doesn't mean that you can't make it better. And so I love being able to pull out more flavor and adding, taking a really fatty cut like skirt steak, which surprises people, but it has a lot of fat. And then slicing that up right, and then serving it with a chimichurri because it has the red wine vinegar. It's got the oil in there, garlic, and everything tastes great with garlic. The red chili flakes, but especially the vinegar is going to cut right through that fat. It's going to, and when I say cut, I mean it's going to take that mouthfeel and no longer make it so like, I don't even know, just like filling, and it's going to make it a lot more smoother. And then the tanginess of it, I mean, just really comes through as well as the fresh herbalness. And so it's like very simple to like pico or salsa verdes and a lot of South American and Southwestern food. And so I just love it. I love comboing all kinds of stuff and things that may not necessarily go together, and see what I can kind of come up with.
Yeah, the one you posted today of the lamb looked really good.
Yeah,
I don't think I've had lamb since I was a little kid. I have no idea what it even tastes like, but I was like, I would eat that. Looks pretty good.
And I think it's been proven that it's not true, but most cultures outside of the United States, that's a main primary meat. A lot of people always say it's the number one consumed meat. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I mean, everywhere else outside the U.S., it is. Here in the U.S., we eat pork, chicken, and beef. That's about it. And obviously seafood, but or fish, but mostly pork, chicken, and beef, and probably mostly chicken, and pork. But even beef is relatively a higher end food. It tends to be more expensive. And so it's funny because outside of the US, lamb and goat, there's tons of recipes. People are always cooking with lamb. And so it's just different too. I think lamb gets a bad rep sometimes because the fat is different. And so with beef, you can eat cold beef and not feel it's not gross. Like it just still tastes like beef, but it's cold. Whereas with lamb, because of the fat, it just, whenever people don't eat it hot, it just becomes a little bit more slimy. And so people are like, oh no, I hate lamb. And it's just probably because they didn't eat it at a good temperature. Yeah. But yeah, I love lamb, and leg of lamb is fantastic.
Yeah. So how did you get into this? So, right, like you said in college, you were you made cereal. That was your staple, was your cereal making. So you got into you like cooking over a fire, but like not even just that. How do you get into these recipes? How do you develop these recipes where you just keep taking a step forward? And then you post so often that it's like I'm like, God, this guy freaking eats so good every single day. It blows my mind.
Just buying the meat.
It blows my mind. But anyway, so we'll start with like, how did you start going down this path of, okay, how can I push it next? Like what started you doing that?
I read every cookbook, watched any show. I went through a 2.5 year period where I was just a student. Like I didn't even really write a lot of recipes when we were first starting off. I mean, when I first started off, I was still working full time and I was just featuring chefs that really inspired me and stuff and so we were not taking it very seriously. But I started slowly writing recipes of things that I had learned. I moved a lot. I lived in Georgia for a while. I lived in West Texas for a while. And so I was just recreating some recipes from things that I remember growing up as a kid. And there was no fire cooking like tutorials anywhere. I mean, this was 5 years ago. And even on YouTube, everything was either in Portuguese or Spanish. Like I remember having to put translators on just to figure out what people were doing and talking about. There were cuts of meat that I'd never heard of that now are like you find at your grocery stores. I mean, picanha is now a cut of beef that I think most people that are getting into grilling have probably heard of to some degree. And the funny part is, like when I was on there, I literally couldn't find one butcher shop that even knew what picanha was. They would just grind it up and put it in with their or with their burgers. And I don't know if you guys know what picanha is, but that's Brazilian style steak that you'll find on like at Brazilian steakhouses. It's like the C shape with the fat on the outside.
Oh yeah.
It comes from the backside of the cow. It's like they call it the queen of beef. It's just absolutely delicious. And the fun thing about picanha is because the fat is the flavor itself. So the fat has so much buttery flavor to it. And so a lot of people keep that fat cap on their steak. So you're not trying to get around grizzle. It's like it literally melts in your mouth. And so, I mean, there was all these cuts and I bought every cookbook. I mean, you can kind of see behind me, but like all of those books over there are cookbooks, everything. And I've read them cover to cover. And I read anything that I could get my hands on, learning anything that was there. And so, I mean, at first it was me just trying to replicate cooking in my backyard, chefs that I really admired, just learning what chimichurri was, and what constitutes chimichurri. And then about after a year, and that was when I started doing recipe videos and just trying things out and seeing if people thought that they were interesting. And we just were exploding on social media because nobody was really doing fire cooking like that. They were doing barbecue and grilling, but they were not really doing fire cooking to that degree. And then the next thing I knew, I wanted to play with flavor a lot more. And so I branched out and I really pulled from my Southwestern part of my life. So I did a lot of Hispanic food, a lot of Mexican food. And I started playing with stuff and seeing what I could come up with and coming up with original ideas on my own. And honestly, just keeping the trinity of salt, pepper, garlic and almost every piece of it and building from there. I mean, one of the first things I did, it was not even all that new, but it was I took flank steak and I cut with the grain against the grain, rolled it up and skewered it so that when I cooked it, I would slice it off and it would still be against the grain, but it would be in circles. And that was it. Like there was nothing special about that, but it went nuts. People freaked out about it and they thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I literally was like, all I did was cut it different and seasoned it and cooked it over fire.
I actually remember seeing that and thinking, I was like, that's actually really smart.
And that was it. That was where we started. And now, I mean, literally tomorrow I'll be posting, or whenever people hear this, probably will be posted. I'm doing, it's mimicking one of my friend's recipes and I give him a big shout out and you should go and check out his page, Chilies and Smoke, but it's a triple seared steak. So the idea is you take a thinner cut of steak and get really hot fire and you'll cover it in salt and then you'll sear it off for only like a minute or so until it's about 90 degrees internal. You'll pull it off and you will dip it in bourbon and get all the salt off of it, almost all the salt. You'll pull it back out. You'll sear it again and sear it until it's about 115. And then pull that off, dip that in soy sauce, and then you'll cover it in soy sauce, and then you'll sear it again until it's about like 120 to 125. And then when you're done with it, you pull it off, you let it rest, and you slice into it. I serve it with it's an Asian inspired style of chimichurri. So I'm using garlic chili paste and sesame seeds and scallions and some other fun things in there. And literally, we go from learning just doing something clever, like, slicing a flank steak and rolling it so you can slice against the grain on skewers, to now I'm like, finding and like working with like friends and coming up with weird recipes where you're literally dredging it in like 3 different substances and getting all 3 levels of flavor. And so we're really, we're growing way past into some really fun culinary experiences. So I'm having a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Well, you had me at steak, you had me at bourbon, you had me at salt. So
yeah,
but you lost him after you said I use more than salt and pepper.
You didn't lose me too far, because I actually have Derek's spices, so I like to use those in the regular. They're really good. And talking about cookbooks, so I think it's a good time. Let's talk about you have a cookbook coming out here pretty soon, right? Into this month. I think I have it pre-ordered on Amazon. I think it's coming. I think it's being shipped like on the 27th. Is that right?
We're hoping so. The global pandemic has really pushed a lot of shipping stuff, so it may come a little later in May. But I have to tell everyone that's not my fault. You
can blame the ship and the Suez Canal for that one.
They crashed that at the right time for me to come up with that. Even though I don't think it has anything to do with it.
It does now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have a fun cookbook coming out. Honestly, it was just a summation of everything I've learned in the past 4.5 years. Just the building of fires, the gear that you need. You don't even need all that much. I don't use anything. I don't use any of my spices in there. I don't use any of my gear that's like super specialty. It's just, you need a rotisserie, you'll need a skewers, and you need charcoal and a grill and maybe a skillet. And it's a lot of fun. It's all simple, approachable recipes that you can do in your backyard or camping or any place that you have availability to, just keep stuff cool or whatever. So honestly, I'm really excited about it. It's called Food by Fire. And it's the first of 2. So I'm currently writing the second one. Right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Brandon, I think he's got a good beef rib recipe on that one for you. So
I do.
I love beef ribs.
Have you ever done rotisserie beef ribs?
No. I'm lucky to.
We just graduated him off of gas.
Yeah. He was doing propane everything until we talked him into getting a smoker.
If we're being realistic, I wasn't even doing that. I was warming up hot dogs, basically. That's all I was doing.
Well,
honestly, we all were at some point. I get it.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, JP.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna talk about you talking about equipment, like cooking equipment.
Yeah.
I have 3, 4, 5 different grills, but my wife loves that. And I say grills. What did you start out with? So I know that you have just kind of a fire bowl that you use quite a bit. I've seen you use a drum style smoker, all kinds of different stuff. You used a Brio a ton, which I really like. And considering
you have a Komodo Joe, right? Too.
I don't have any Kamados, although I still think they're one of the most fantastic grills out there. Hard thing is that they break so easily, but that's the way it goes. But yeah, no, I have everything. And I kid you not, like I have everything, and then it's second. And so I love them all. And honestly, I still find myself cooking on a few specific ones more than others. But I started out on just a kettle grill, just a simple, like a Weber grill or any classic kettle charcoal. style grill. And then I was able to go. I also used a lot of popover little grill grates. So like Camp Chef makes just like simple travel grill grates, and we had a little campfire in our backyard, and so I would cook on those. And then I started using Brio a lot. I still think on the market for a grill and a fire pit, but not even just for those two categories, for something that has no like electronic component technologically, I 100% think it's the best product out there when it comes to like wanting to have a fire pit and a grill. I mean, it just keeps the whole smokeless thing. I mean, they always put it in quotations because it's almost impossible to just completely take smoke out of a campfire. But I mean, it does work, especially if you're keeping it fed with good wood. It's impossible. It's pretty great. Do you have one?
I don't. I have a solo stove, but I think I'm going to take the solo stove and give it to my parents who have a camper so they can take it with them camping all the time. And I'm going to get a Brio for the backyard. Because while I like the solo stove, and for those reasons, it burns good, hot, you know, as long as you build the fire correctly, but there's no way to cook over it, which I was thoroughly, you know, kind of disappointed in. I have a tripod with a grill grate that hangs, but it's a little cumbersome when you can get a Brio that just has a grate that swings on over, and it also has do you use the searing ledge much? Does it work pretty well?
Yeah, no, of course. And I really love it for like my sauces, like melting butter, all that kind of stuff. It also works, it works better with smaller cuts. So like it works really great with scallops. It works really great with shrimp, especially if you skewer it, like skewered shrimp. So, I mean, there's always a risk anytime you're cooking, food drops into the fire. And sometimes you do it intentionally.
I like that.
Like I do when I cook things right in the coals. But all that to say, like, I think, it's really great. And so I have a ton of grills. I really love, there's a South American style model of grill. I've gone through a couple of different ones. There's a ton on the market. I don't even know if they specifically have a style or a name. The company I use right now is called Kenke Amara. And they're really fun too. It's very similar to like a kettle. It's just like a wood fire kettle in a lot of ways. But overall, I mean, I really love, and then when it comes to smokers and specifically charcoal, I'm using Oklahoma Joe a lot. I work with them, but I work with them because I used it so much. I mean, I just think one thing I always have appreciated about them is that they've never tried to be anything more than just a good grill and smoker. Like they weren't trying to push their agenda on doing anything crazy or different. They kept the simple stuff right, and that's all I really wanted. And so, and even in the beginning, I didn't want to cook American barbecue. Growing up in the South, there is a little bit of a pretentiousness when it comes to the guy who cooks barbecue. And there's so much competition. And I just was like, I will never do that. And now like 1 in every 3 recipes is probably Americanized.
So when you're doing the style you do, I know like with smokers and stuff, a lot of it's like, oh, use this type of wood for this or this for that because of the smoke. But with what you do, does it matter? What kind of stuff do you use for fuel?
I mean, the type of wood does matter. It's a little, I mean, I'm no wood expert. I mean, I know that you guys probably know a lot more than I do. But I mean, at the end of the day, having hardwood is the key. I mean, having good fruit woods also help with flavor. But hardwood is I mean, you need stuff that's going to coal. Like it needs.
I mean, as far as like flavors go.
Yeah. I love white oak. Being here in Tennessee, we get a lot of white oak. Actually, there's a local guy here. I'm able to get a little bit of red oak from him, which is a lot of fun too. And then hickory is really is good. It can be a little too smoky, in my opinion. And then we have family in East Tennessee, and we get a lot of wild cherry. And we'll get that wild cherry, and we'll season it. And man, that's the best. That's the bomb. But at the end of the day, as long as you're not using like sweet gum or something that's just gonna. I mean, you can.
Pine.
Yeah, not pine. Definitely, I've had to out in P&W. That's like all you can get. And I've had people say like, "Oh, it's the only wood I'll ever use." And I'm like, "Do you like ash and like a residue on your food?" That's what but no, I'll use a lot of white oak. I use a lot of hickory. But when it comes to flavor, I do notice it with wild cherry. But since it's open, like it's not as powerful, or it's not as distinctive as you might see when it comes to those enclosed grills, where they're just adding the touch of mesquite, or they're adding applewood to try and get those accentuated flavors. With this, is really about necessity and getting kiln dried wood. At the end of the day, is just having really good dry wood.
Yeah. I mean, my palate's probably not, professional enough to even matter, but like we were talking before, and I was like, what do you guys use different pellets for different stuff? Because it always says, chicken use apple or this or that. And I think all three of us are just like, we just use like a blend.
Yeah.
The only thing I've tried like 5 different ones, and the only thing I can tell a difference in the Traeger at least is like the Texas beef Traeger stuff, which has like hickory in it.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it's really
I
smoky.
agree. That's probably like one of those that like we all just agree on, but we never really talk about too much. And that is like, there are flavors that I absolutely love that people are like, oh really? Like I love mesquite wood. Like I've been out to Texas, cooked over fire, and I thought a mesquite grilled steak was fantastic. Now, I wasn't putting it in an enclosed smoker. I mean, it was open pit fire.
Yeah.
I can taste the difference with pecan though. A little bit of that subtle nutty sweetness out of pecan. You can taste the difference, but at the end of the day, good wood is just good wood.
Where do you get your wood from? If it's kiln dried, and it's because you're obviously getting it very different than like we're just getting pellets from the store, right, in a bag. Where are you getting yours from?
The high-end Home Depots.
No, I there's a local Nashville fire pit or firewood making company. So they have a bunch of acreage here, and they source wood as well from the Southeast. So I can get all kinds of different flavors and stuff, but I'm usually headed to oak, and I get some hickory every now and then.
That's cool.
So they're always kiln dried. Do you get it locally, Jess?
I don't. Well, I do. I go cut down trees and let it season myself and stuff, and just cook. Have it for fires or whatever. But
have you ever used your cutoffs?
I have a lot. I use them with my smoker a lot because, like what Derek's doing, and Derek, you obviously tell me if I'm wrong here, but when we're using smokers and stuff, even when I was using like my ugly drum smoker and putting wood inside of it, in an enclosed area at a lower temperature, it's creating more of that smoke, which is, getting into the meat and the taste. And what Derek's doing and the open fire at a hotter temperature, or just always broke down into coals, he's not getting as much as that smoke flavor into the meat as we would for like a traditional smoker. So it's a little different when you're picking your woods out. I'm sure Derek wants a good hardwood that's going to burn longer. It's going to make good coals. It's going to be hot and probably stay more even as best as possible, which with oak and hickory and stuff would be really good. But like a stick burner smoker, you can pick your woods a little bit different. You can get some cherry or something like that is going to generate a little different smoke taste because it's at a lower temperature and, getting more smoke into the meat.
Yeah, 100% right. And that with, and I use a lot of lump charcoal as well, since the same idea. Just jump right through the smokiness and get right to the heat.
I use cowboy charcoal. Use cowboy charcoal too. Yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah. That's always been my favorite.
So what's the difference in the lump charcoal and like briquettes? I know nothing about that stuff. So
So lump charcoal, I probably should know to a better degree the whole educational process of breaking down wood and getting it all the way down to lump charcoal and the whole 9 yards. I believe to some degree they're throwing it into a kiln and they're drying and then charcoaling it all the way up, and then they're cooling it and then bagging it. Am I off on that? Does anybody know?
No, I think you're right.
And then, whereas briquettes, to my best knowledge, so lump is like all natural, No, it's not tampered with. It's not not seasoned, but it's not, you're not getting like construction wood or lumber wood,
right.
or hopefully not.
And no binders like with briquettes. They have to add binders and stuff to keep the briquettes in
something in there that's an accelerator, right?
Right. And so,
most likely.
So with lump or with briquettes, to my best knowledge, I know that it's just compressed like wood or charcoal. And so it's compressed all the way down. And the idea is with the binder, wood at all the same sizes, you can predict its heat and you can predict and control how hot it gets or how low of a heat that you want. So that's always the issue with fire cooking. Fire cooking is not 100% exact science, even though we obviously have like temperature guns and the whole 9 yards now, and you can do the hand test, but that's obviously not, and so like you can judge, temperature to some degree, but a lot of it is just experience. But with briquettes, the idea is that you were able, and you can even see this with like Dutch oven camping and stuff like that. You say, put 7 briquettes on top, 4 on below, or 6 on top. And so the idea is that you're controlling temperature. And so if they're all the same size with the same airflow and they're all started at the same time, they're all going to break down at the same speed, is one of the main points with briquettes. And so they really were revolutionary in an idea of being able to give the average consumer control over the heat that they are able to put into their fire, into their grills. And so they still are really fantastic. The only downside with them is that I think that a lot of people tend to nowadays are finding themselves going towards lump just because we have a big mentality, especially in the US, is knowing where our stuff comes from, wanting to know, is there any additives or anything in this that could be harmful, or do we even know if it's harmful? I think that, I don't know my whole science on if any of that is actually harmful, but I do know that like if you're cooking on coals, you definitely want to be using real wood. So nothing that's treated or lump. You want to be using lump. Whereas like I've definitely seen people use briquettes, and that's not the idea. 2 things, chemicals in it, and secondly, it's meant to break down into ash, and so it's easier cleanup for a lot of people. And so you're just going to end up having why people always freak out. They're like, oh, my steak was so ashy if I cooked it on the coals. And I'm like, well, you probably used briquettes because it's literally just going to be covered in a coating of ash.
Yeah.
So
that's funny. One of the so back several years ago, I think that one of the most underrated steaks is the skirt steak. I absolutely love skirt steak and cook it quite a bit, but 2 or 3 years ago, I used to cook it all the time directly on the coals. So I would start up on lump charcoal, lay it all out, put them directly on the coals and cook it that way. It's kind of, people would be over and they all thought I was crazy. And they're like, it's going to be ashy and taste like crap and blah, blah, blah. Dude, it's phenomenal all the time. And I think that's actually how I found your account is when I saw it, I was like, oh, that dude's doing stuff like that too. But you're exactly right. If you're not using briquettes, you're using like that lump charcoal and you're using like a chimney instead of course, any kind of like accelerator or anything like that to start it with, you're going to get a good, better, like less ash, good, clean fire. That lump charcoal is as close as you can get to doing like what Derek does, burning the wood all the way down to charcoal and shoveling on over to something. It's going to be just like that.
Yeah. And I think, both sides have different pros and different cons. I think that briquettes is really, it tends to be cheaper for a lot of people. It tends to be way more accessible. I know, a lot of guys that use it in smokers swear by it burning longer than a lot of charcoal will. And the problem with charcoal, or lump charcoal, is that because they're not all even sizes, you'll sometimes have random bursts of high heat because the big guy the big lump that you got in there finally caught and has just absolutely like fires up. And so that's fine in my degree when I'm just grilling and temperature needs to just be that incendiary level. But if you're smoking and really needing to control temperature so you don't lose moisture and you're not cooking fat out, you end up really wanting something that's going to be consistent and easy to use, and something that you can really rely on. And so I know a lot of my friends will sometimes use briquettes when they're smoking. So they use that and then they'll add wood.
I gotta ask, so do this every day? You cook on the bear, or you do okay? Because like, you know, when you look at social media, it's kind of the same thing for us, but obviously we're doing woodworking stuff. But it's like every day you see something amazing come from your channel, and I'm like, oh God, this guy, man, I wish I could eat like this. But I assume that you do like in lumps, right? Where it's like, okay, I gotta prep. It's kind of like what we do for woodworking. We focus on the project, get it done, and then you may have content for a few days. Then you get. Is that similar? What you do is like you kind of
somewhat similar, a little bit. I mean, so not every day, but I cook probably 4 times a week. So maybe I should have probably said closer to every day than lumping it all together. But yeah. I mean, the problem is like I have to post every day. And I started in the beginning, I was like, all right, let's be crazy. Let's do 3 recipes a week. And I don't know, but my dumbass decided to just keep doing that. And so that's where we're at. I mean, I'm writing variations of my own recipes using different proteins, like 6 or 7 months later. And then the nice thing is too, I just have we have so much content. Every 6 months, because we're growing so fast, I can pull out an old recipe video and throw that out. So like today, I mean, on the weekends, I really try not to cook, but today the rotisserie leg of lamb that I posted was from 7 months ago. That was from when we went to our lake house last summer, or my family's lake house. And so I get lucky that like I can throw that kind of content up there because we're growing so fast. People are like, oh my gosh, that's so great. How did I not see that? Or like whatever. And they're like, this is a throwback. And you're like, yeah, this is definitely.
Even if you're not growing that fast, if you're talking about Instagram, half the time, 80% of your audience didn't see it anyway.
So right, exactly.
You can post it next week and just get a bunch of people like, oh, this is cool. I've never seen
it before. And you have so many people that the hard thing for me is I have some friends that are like, I always only share new content. And now we're kind of getting in social media combos. But one of the things I learned off real early is like, as long as it's relatively spaced out, like I think 6 months is pretty fair. You're sharing it twice a year. I think that if you got something that just goes viral, keep it in your feed. Like if people like it, keep posting it. I mean, I have videos on there that I don't think ever get old. Like I love pissing people off when I post my garlic cheese lobster tails that I smoked, and I do it twice a year. I look forward to it every time.
So it could be something too where like your followers see it and they're like, oh, I want to cook that, and then they like just kind of put it in the back of their mind and don't do it, and then it pops up again and they're like, oh, okay, now I'm gonna do it. So it's kind of keeping it fresh, front of mind. And
I have tons of videos now, probably 20 to 30 videos that once a month I'm coming into like a 6-month-old, 7-month-old post that I'm like, okay, finally now I can post this again, or share it, because I'm posting every single day. And so we'll do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There'll be the video recipes that I'm posting on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, TikTok, YouTube, and the blog.
Jeez.
And so we're posting all of those 3 times a week, writing the recipes and the articles and hosting all of that and managing all the comments and all the criticisms and all the crappy things that come with it as well.
Yeah, of course.
And so we do that 3 times a week. And then I'll do Tuesday, Thursday. I'll usually post like a sizzle, like now with Reels being on Instagram and stuff. I'll post like a searing steak or a short video of one of the recipes or something. That's usually what Tuesday, Thursday is. And then the weekends, I really try and take Sundays off and then I'll post like a recipe video on Saturday. But yesterday we were playing a game with friends, and I was like, you know what, I'll just post on Sunday. So there you go. Yeah, that's it. There's my schedule for my whole week. Is 4 times a week I'm cooking, and then that's literally like 15% of my work, and then the rest of the time I'm dealing with talking with people and agents and clients, and then going on podcasts, and then dealing with comments. That's my my whole.
Yeah. So
who's your clients? You said clients. No,
yeah. I work with all kinds of people. Cowboy Charcoal has been a big supporter of mine for a really long time.
Okay. So you mean like sponsored thing?
Yeah.
I didn't know if you like taught people cooking too or something.
No. We will at some point hopefully venture into that space and doing more classes and stuff. But we were trying to do it in 2020, and then obviously everything, hit the fan. So
yeah. So you're obviously very heavily in content, and that's a huge focus for you. What made you go like full force into this? Like, did you have a viral moment, or it was just kind of a slow burn where you're like, oh, okay, I'm picking up some speed, and then you're just going, or you're just like, I don't care what people think, I'm just gonna start posting? Like, what was your mindset?
It was a slow burn. It was not quite not caring, but it was, I've always called it like intuitive analytics, but just finding out what is working on Instagram. Like, there's a reason why people like these style of videos. I remember being obsessed with tasty style 1-minute recipe videos. And that was what I watched for like years. And I just thought to myself one day, I was like, how can I know there are nobody that's on Instagram that's doing this for grilling and specifically cooking over fire, but just grilling and barbecue. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to produce these high level HD, resolution style videos, but I can do it with my iPhone. And so I just started playing with it and having fun with it. And it was a blend of trying to be cutting edge with recipes, cooking with weird pieces of equipment that people wanted to know what I was doing, cooking weird and avant-garde recipes to some degree that would either be hit or people got really pissed off about it. I mean, I think that the hard accepting fact for me was, and it's a blessing and a curse for me, is because I'm not a chef, I don't have to play by culinary rules, or I don't feel like I'm, have to play inside this culinary handbook. And so putting cheese on seafood is 100% against all things known by chefs when it comes to, especially Italian cooks. And that's like their number one, like, do not do. And that's never been a problem for me. Or adding more than just salt, pepper, and garlic to a steak has never been a problem to me. And it was a slow burn. I remember 2018, we started doing those. 2017, we were testing it. 2018, we were doing a lot of photo-based recipes that we were posting. And then 2019, we started doing a lot more recipe videos. And then 2020 was really full force. And now here we are today too.
Yeah. How much growth have you seen this last year? Because you're 1.8, 1.2? What are you at? Million followers? It's crazy.
Yeah,
a lot more than all of us combined. That's all you really need to know.
It's a blessing and a curse, guys. It's a lot of fun. I love every single one of them. It's the reason I'm able to do anything that I'm doing. But yeah, the hard time, you gotta feed the beast, literally and figuratively.
It's amazing if you don't post how fast you become irrelevant.
Oh my gosh, man. And I've seen it happen to people that do post often, you never even think. I'm pulling up data for y'all right now because I don't even know how much I've grown in the past year.
There's what's funny listening to the last 30 minutes or so is there's so many parallels in what you're doing with cooking and what we do with woodworking, all tying into social media, but like dealing with the comments and creating posts and stuff like that. Like it's the exact same thing, just a different sport, kind of. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of crazy how it all kind of ties in.
Sounds like his cheese is our pocket holes.
That's funny. Yeah.
That's about
You can't
right.
put pocket holes on your lobster. I mean, table. Piece on the table. What?
Exactly.
Hey,
That's
from
funny.
even like picking wood, like stick with the hardwoods.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No pine.
Yeah, no pine.
Pine is no good.
So last year, 2020 was insane. Last year, is that true? I don't even think it's saying I
Is
grew.
this accurate?
Yeah, it said I grew over 400,000 followers in a year.
Pretty amazing.
That's insane.
Which is crazy because, I mean, it was another. I mean, 2020 was probably 4 years worth of social media in a year.
But we say it's crazy, but you're putting the work in. You're posting every single day. You're doing new content, plus, getting old content back in the face of newer people. And you're doing you do a lot of videos, which is really good in Instagram and reaching new followers. Also, I like the way you do a carousel stuff too. You'll do a video of the recipe and then carousel that with photographs. And I think I need to start adopting something like that into the woodworking stuff that we do, because I think that's an excellent way to get Instagram to push your posts a little bit more. So yeah, it's crazy, but it's also just a testament to the amount of work that you're putting into it, because that is a lot of damn work. We've all been there, and growing to what we have been, we know how much work that is. So kudos for you for putting that in.
I don't think it's that crazy when you see the quality of his stuff.
Yeah, it's true too.
You look at his account, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
No, honestly, I think that, it is a lot of work, but yeah, I think, the one thing that has been a benefit for me is I was just not a really good employee. I didn't, I was not a good employee, and it has been really hard to learn that lesson. And so I just always knew if I was going to have to do something, I had to do it for myself. And the truth is, it has taught me how to actually be an employee to some degree. Just this idea of knowing, like, if it doesn't get done, it won't get done. Like I have no safety net with some of how I live. I mean, now a year ago, last summer, my wife quit her full-time job working for Caterpillar and then went full-time with me. And so the biggest benefit I had, the only reason I was able to even do what I do is not only the followers, but also because my wife was such a good employee and such a fantastic manager and just cruising through corporate America and making and keeping really good money, that she was so willing for me to just see what we could do with this. And she came from a family of entrepreneurs, and so do I. And so I owe everything to her, buying me time to just figure it out. And so I worked really hard in the beginning, just trying to figure out, how can I get content working? What is working? How can I use good ideas that is working and adopt it for myself, and using it and using my own creativity to exemplify that, like using the 1-minute videos that I saw Tasty was doing and seeing the flow and pattern that people enjoyed about that, and seeing how can I do that for barbecue? How can I do that for grilling? Taking recipes. It was hard in the beginning to learn that, like, the recipes that did the best were the ones that got the most criticism. And so just accepting, like, the reason why Salt Bay got so big was because people either loved him or hated him. And the dude is like number one on Instagram when it comes to food. Yeah. And the truth is that that's 100% true. I mean, I think we have a political system that speaks to that. Like, we buy into people, we love it or we hate it. And so we love the duality. And people love to hate it and hate to love it. And so I think that, like, I learned early on, like, man, I need to take some of my ego out a little bit, and maybe I need to put out some recipes that might ruffle people's feathers, and push them in a direction that's educational. Like, you can add more than just salt to your steak, but like press into it a little bit. And so we did really well with that. The carousels. I have to give credit where credit's due. My friends, Devour Power, they run a social media. It's a food all foods, like food porn style stuff. I mean, just absolutely insane burgers and all kinds of stuff. And I saw them, they were going out to restaurants and doing little videos, and then they just have the little swipe with carousels. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that is genius. Because then you can have the video first, but then you can slow it down, because you can't pause videos on Instagram. You can slow it down and kind of just see like 4 or 5 steps after it, like, oh, this was the building process to making this recipe. And I just made it my own in using my videos and coming up with using the process steps to tell people how to do it. And Instagram just loved it. I mean, social media loves when you use what they are trying to push.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's the hard fact with social is there are people that make great content that don't use the products that the social is trying to push, and they won't grow. And then there are people out there, I'm sure you have them in your space, that are just terrible content creators, and they're using the
no idea what you're talking about.
And they're using what's fresh right now, and they're getting pushed in front of millions of people, and you're just looking and like, oh my gosh, what, either is this is just crazy. And so I think that that was also a hard lesson, is being able to shift on a dime with content and with learning. I mean, the whole TikTok game in food has been weird, because I have no idea how long TikTok will stay around, but the video styles and content are here to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, that short form, crazy verbiage, very loud and boisterous attitudes and personalities are not going away anytime soon. It's the same idea as putting cheese on lobster. People love to hear people say weird, questionable, and joking things.
Yeah. Just
or
something
being
different.
Yeah. And it is something different. I think the biggest struggle that Instagram has is that it actually is made up of a lot of professionals. There's a lot of people that are really trying to be professional craftsmen on there. And the problem with the next generation is where they're at. And it's with every generation. We were all there at some point. They don't want to know professionalism. They want unprofessionalism.
Yeah. They want creativity, something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want somebody to say what they all want to wish they could say to some degree, and be blunt and rude and joking and the whole 9 yards. And so, they want people to do experiments with food that make no sense, and yet still try it just for fun. Yeah. And so I think that pushing my content and figuring out how do we grow in these new categories has been interesting, just because even though I've never said I'm a chef at any moment, the funny thing is now I do. I understand their struggle, because you learn so much and you learn how to and not to do things. And now you're at a place where crap, it's kind of hard to unlearn how to do something or make a mistake and go viral for doing something stupid, and then just being like, oh, well, you suck it up. I don't care. So
yeah, that new style content will really suck you in. TikTok figured out how to keep me on my phone for hours. I can't open that app.
I don't have
even with food stuff. There's a dude on there from Louisiana, and he does just massive gumbo things, and you can't hardly understand what he's saying, but it's amazing. He's like, all right, today I'm gonna show you how to do this gumbo, blah, and he's starting it with a boat paddle and shit. I'm like, who is he making that for? Is it 300 people there? But it's he just does crazy stuff, and
but it's the same as the content on Instagram that was 15 burgers covered in cheese. It's the same idea.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a really fun guy. His name's Chef Kuso. And he does all kinds of weird stuff, and I love it. He put pre-workout in his seasoning on his ribs, and you're like, dude. I mean, somebody probably thought of it before and was like, I wonder what ribs would taste like if I ate them before I worked out.
That's right. That makes sense.
And it makes
it ribs
fun. It's interesting. It's unique. And so I like that. I like that mentality, pushing the limits. But at the same time, you'll definitely, it'll be interesting to see how social media evolves because all those consumers will become professionals, and they'll grow into the space, and they're going to need a good cutting board, and they're going to need to know how to cook and grill. And so I feel like all of us in this space are in good, including y'all, are in good, like professional platforms, because everybody needs that style of content at some point in their life and for most of their life.
Eric, how's YouTube going for you? How long have you been doing YouTube? Have you been on YouTube long? I know you have close to 100,000 subscribers now, but
yeah.
And I know you do a lot of shorts, I guess. Is that being successful for you? Or?
Yeah, I had 4,000 in December.
Nice.
So we have almost 100,000 now. I mean, I'm not even one that grew as fast. There's other guys that grew way faster. I think.
Oh yeah.
Literally,
like a lot of guys.
Yeah, a ton. Just everybody. Yeah,
there's a lot of guys.
Amazing.
That's just the testament of of using something that the platform is pushing. And I learned my lesson. Like I was probably within the first 25% that got on TikTok. I just had it just to have my tag there, and I didn't really do too much with it. And I remember end of summer 2019, I just started. I was like, maybe I should start putting my recipe videos on there. And like within a month, we went from like 20 followers to like 190,000 followers. And I was just sitting there. I was like, I think I'm good. Like, I don't think I need to really push too much harder. Then, COVID came around, and those that were pushing hard on TikTok, especially around March, just exploded because nobody was able to do anything. And we're all looking for new content and trying to be consumed by new content. And so I kind of got left in the dust in some degree. I always felt really guilty. I was like, dang, man, I knew it. I knew what I should have been doing. I knew that it was an interesting platform that people were attaching themselves to. And I could have been somebody that was, I never know, but I felt like I could have been somebody that had traction there. And so I learned really fast. All right, if there's anything that's out there that's going to move and, shake the ground, I need to be first to market, and I need to be, one thing I am really good at is being consistent. Like I'm going to be consistent on posting no matter what. And so YouTube said that they're coming out with the shorts. And I thought that was game changer for me, especially since they don't even consider YouTube a social media. It's being it is being compared to like Netflix in consumption. And so I just was like, dude, these shorts this is going to explode. Like people are going to start going on to YouTube to watch these. And so I was like one of the first few guys that started posting there, and dude, they were like just handing out free followers. And it was just handing out. And so I felt really thankful about that. It has slowed down a little bit just because the initial wave has kind of slowed down, but I think it opened up a whole new space because I had less than like 4,000 followers on YouTube my whole time. And nobody was expanding onto the YouTube, at least in my category, or they were already there and they were using Instagram as like a secondary social media. And now it's just crazy to see some of these guys just explode past guys that, it does feel a little sad. There are guys that have been doing it for, 5-6 years, working really hard at their YouTube videos for longer form content. And they're going to be making a lot more money because that's how you get ads is with your long form content. But I have guys that I know that have hit like 350,000 followers in the past like 3 months just from shorts.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. Nice. Insane.
My dumb ass hasn't posted one, by the way, not a single one.
Oh man,
I've done a few, but they're not done that great.
I'm rotating now. I'm doing what every other week. I do a full length video and then I supplement with a short, and then I go back to that's kind of what I've been doing. So I post every week is kind of my goal. But
it'll be interesting to see. I think like how quality of the followers it is, but I don't think the shorts are going away. But it'll be interesting to see. I don't really know. But the truth is, it's like, it is the wild, wild west in some degree when it comes to social media. I mean, things shift on a dime, and just being able and nimble enough to do it to some degree, and keeping your ear against the ground to hear what is coming. I got really lucky that I had a few of my friends that were saying like, yo, you need to be on these YouTube shorts like the minute this is.
Yeah. Are you transferring? Are you focusing now that you've exploded on YouTube through the shorts? Are you going to start shifting over to doing the long form content to capitalize on that? That's what I would assume you do.
Yeah. So in a comparison, funny enough, I have almost as many followers on Facebook as I do on Instagram. So Facebook, well, that's not almost. I hit, I'll be at like 1.1 here pretty soon. And we're growing. I'm growing.
That's more impressive than anything.
That's crazy.
Facebook is ridiculously,
and that's all organic, right? You're saying that's just
I've never.
That's insane.
And so our content's a little different on Facebook. We do longer videos, but they're all the same style, recipe video, but they're just all slowed down to normal speeds. So they're not like super fast. And I think that for a lot of people in the demographic that tends to be on Facebook, anything that's super fast is just not going to do as well. And honestly, it's been crazy to watch that. But the funny thing was, when I first started, on Facebook, I was just syndicating content Instagram to Facebook, since they were just connected. And my 1-minute videos were going on there. And so, eating my words a little bit, what I just said, I was growing really fast on Facebook with the short videos. And people were like getting really excited about that. And so I decided, I remember getting a message from Facebook saying, hey, if you make your videos over, like 3 minutes, then they'll like show it to 10 times the number of people that you knew. And I was like, well, it's probably because they can put ads in it. And it's probably, like all these things, they're making money. And so I thought, all right, well, let's see, how can we twist this around? So I remember end of 2019, I decided to like, all right, well, maybe I'll just start playing around with this. Next thing I knew, we just absolutely exploded on Facebook. I mean, we're growing so fast. It gave us a lot of financial freedom as well. I mean, we had a lot of sponsorship deals, but now we are at a place where we had some ad revenue that was doing well. And so we didn't need to really, we didn't need to sign X number post contracts. We could ask for higher dollar amounts, because we didn't need them. In fact, if anything, the issue with Facebook is that you can't double dip. So you can't have a sponsor post and have ads on it. Whereas on like YouTube, you can do that.
Yeah.
But the ad revenue from Facebook is higher than YouTube, right?
It can be. That's
what I've heard. I don't know.
But
it's not even nowhere near enough to monetize it.
But like, we just were having a lot of fun with that. And so I learned really quickly that if you can pull in the followers with the short form videos, then you can throw out the longer form videos and hopefully be successful, especially if they are in the same vein, and they're very similar in a lot of ways. And so that's been our ideas. I feel bad for it feels like cheap followers on YouTube, just like getting all these followers for doing short videos that they're just pushing this content right now. But the goal is get as many followers as you can so that I can start posting 6 or 8 minute long recipe videos. And start having, 10, 20,000 views on videos within a week, instead of begging to hopefully get to one day having 10 or 20,000 videos,
Right.
20,000 views ever. And so it did. And so, but it all just, we haven't tapped into the market of how those videos will look. We've been testing it a little bit, and hopefully we'll get there soon. But dude, YouTube's a whole other beast. Creating content for YouTube. Oh
Well,
God, you guys are warriors.
I kind of saved the two questions, what I thought would be the best questions for last. One, what kind of bourbon are you drinking?
Okay. I'm drinking an Elijah Taylor Full Proof. It's 124.6. And it's fantastic.
So I doubt the other guys know, but I know because I follow your stories and stuff quite a bit. But you're a pretty avid bourbon collector and drinker, correct?
I do. Yeah, I actually
awesome.
I work with Buffalo Trace a lot as well. They're great guys. So,
yeah, I just finished a bottle. It's amazing.
Hey, there you go.
I got one on my shelf over there. So
there you go.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you do stuff with them and as part of your recipes and stuff?
Yeah. And it's mostly just pairings. I try not to waste bourbon into food if you can consume it. But yeah, no, I love BT. I really love all bourbon. And the one fun thing about BT is the fact that they're all fans of bourbon in general. Like the guys that work at BT, they don't, they're like, drink whatever you want. You need to consume anything that you can get your hands on when it comes to good bourbon. Because there's so much good stuff that's out there that you can't, that BT doesn't make, even though that they make, Pappy and Stag, and literally every of the top 10 list, 8 of them are from Buffalo Trace Sazerac. But I think that there's some really good stuff. And so this Elijah is really fantastic. Just very caramelly, nice nutty-ish flavor. I don't know. That sounds really pretentious when it comes to talking about bourbon like that. But yeah, I love it. I love
like this
bourbon too. So
yeah. I'm like, this bourbon tastes good and it gets me drunk. Woo!
Are all y'all bourbon fans to some degree?
Jesse and I are.
Yes.
I don't drink anymore.
Brandon doesn't drink.
My stomach doesn't allow it anymore.
I get it.
So here's my current question. I'm drinking Jefferson's Ocean, which I got a bottle of it for my birthday the other day.
Nice.
Do you know Jefferson's Ocean very much?
Uh-huh.
It says that it's aged at sea. Is that a gimmick or is that for real?
I think it is for real.
It says Voyage 23. So I guess the idea behind it is they put the barrels on ships and they age them on the ocean while the ship is out on the ocean. And I guess the motion of the ocean does until
it gets like stuck in the canal.
It's like that old saying, right?
Well, I mean, they'll rotate, like all bourbon, they'll rotate. They'll rotate the barrels because the longer it ages, it gets deeper into the wood. That's where we get a lot of the flavor from it.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I'm probably repeating things that you already know.
Nope.
But with that one, I'm sure there's some more to it. I mean, it also depends on, I have no idea where these guys are at. I'm assuming they're probably in like the Caribbean or something, because you need a lot. You need the reason why Tennessee, like the two reasons that I really love Tennessee when it comes to bourbon are the reasons why, it kind of also sucks to live here. And that is, it's hot. It is so hot, but it also switches temperature really, really fast. And so that's why you can have like these really hot midsummer days, and then it just switches into cooler nights. And then on top of that, we have a lot of white oak, which at the end of the day is probably the best barrels.
Yep.
And so that's why, a lot of and same with Kentucky. We're basically right next to each other on temperature wise. And so anyway, I think that a lot of that shifts back and forth. So it expands into the wood and it'll contract at night. But I'm imagining probably Jefferson's is probably going through some really hot weather in order to.
It's good.
I bet it is. I've had it a couple times.
It's smooth. And then the one of the last questions I had for you, and that don't have to be the absolute last question, but where are you getting all your badass cutting boards from? Like every time I see a video, you got a different damn cutting board or a serving tray that looks all cool. And where are you getting all these things from?
So when early on, there was a guy out in Texas, Monier Woodcraft, and he made all my geometric style cutting boards. So they're all end grain geometric. I don't even know what some of the woods were that were used, but I really love the darker purple style woods. I think that there's just not a lot of purple when it comes to barbecue and grilling, and so I think that having quality cutting boards that are dark helps to when you add the greenery on top of the cut steak, it like pops that medium rare a little bit more. So I got quite a few from him. And then honestly, it's been all over. There was a real estate agent here in Tennessee that made these, the split one that I have with the blue. I don't even know.
It's epoxy.
Yeah, epoxy.
Yeah.
So there's a blue epoxy in there. And then there was a bigger company called AE Luxury Home Goods out of New York that made my engraved one. So it's the one with my, it's all the engrained dark wood, and then it has my logo on it. And then I have a really good local friend who he does cabinets, custom cabinets here in Tennessee. And I always am like, hey, if you ever have weird cuts, like just weird whatever, make me a cutting board and I'll use it. And so he just makes me, so I have a couple of just like weird ones that, just like fun ones that I have randomly, but I probably have like 20 different cutting boards. Because you got to switch it up. It's same with knives. Like I collect knives, chef knives now. One, because it was out of necessity, because I wanted to have things that pop. But two, now I'm like, man, there's so many crazy things that are out there, and guys are coming out with some fun, crazy ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see a lot of your different knives on there, which I think are really cool as well. What is your favorite knife right now that you're using?
Well, so I have, so there's two. I have the knife that I am using all the time. So it's the one that I'm cutting everything with and prepping. I don't do a lot of prep in my videos themselves. But it's a Zwilling, and it is a Bob Kramer collab. So Bob Kramer's a really famous knife maker. His knives can be anywhere from like $15,000 to $20,000. They're just insane. And that's also another thing that you don't even realize, that I always have to tell people in the world of craft goods, is that good products made in the US with quality equipment and material and knowledge are not cheap.
Yeah, you're speaking to the choir here.
Yeah.
Trust me.
And like most of
you got a bunch of woodworkers here trying to sell people shit. We know.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, you look at some of these knives, and people are like, "Oh my gosh!" Like a realistic, good quality knife. Some of them can be, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and people are realizing, "Oh my gosh, it's so expensive." And then you're like, "But do you know how expensive the metal was, the wood it was, the amount of time it took him to just make the Damascus steel that you're trying to buy that you think is so cool?" I mean, at the end of the day, he's barely making minimum wage on everything that he pulled out of selling that knife.
Exactly.
And so anyway, that's a whole other combo. But I love my Bob Kramer. You can go and get that at like Sur La Table or Williams Sonoma. I mean, it's just like a more realistic. I think it's like $150 for that knife. It's a Damascus steel knife. Really, really fantastic. But I have a friend, my favorite knife to use. I have a friend, his name is Fingal Ferguson, and he's out of Ireland. I used to, before COVID, we used to go out to the UK and Ireland a lot because there's a really big booming barbecue and grilling and fire cooking scene out there. I befriended this crazy Irishman who's in his like late 40s. Dude is eccentric, looks like his hair is never normal. Like it's always just like poofed and weird. And he's this really amazing cook, but his family runs a cheese, they're in the dairy and cheese industry, and they make Gubin cheese out of West Ireland. And he always got really upset. This is a story he told me. I don't know if it's really that true because he's crazy, but he always told me that like he just was really upset with cheese knives, and so he decided to just start making his own knives, just for fun. Like this guy's crazy. He just started learning how to make knives just for fun. And now he, in the custom knife making world, 4 years ago, he had a 7-year wait list on his knives. He was only making one a week.
Wow.
And the funny thing for me, is that he was not selling them for any insane prices. Like he was selling them for like $200, $300. I mean, the guy could probably have gotten away with a couple $1,000 and people would have eaten them up and bought 3 of them. And so anyway, he made these beautiful knives. And the fun thing for him was he was using handles that were different. So he was epoxying pine cones and then carving them down into the handles, or getting bog wood and making handles out of it, and just like insane stuff. And so anyway, I befriended him, and 2 years before that, he stopped taking orders for knives. And we started having a couple beers. It's Ireland. And then
so
the next thing I knew, he's like, he asked me, do you want a knife? And I was like, sure. I didn't know who this guy really was, and so, he made me it was a white resin pine cone, knife, with a handle, and it's all, stainless steel, and it's absolutely beautiful. I think it's like a 8 or 9 inch, chef's knife. And so he sent me this, and it was insane. And then a year later, he asked if I wanted another knife. This guy doesn't take orders anymore. And so I got a slicer knife. And then I got really lucky with him. He was going to give to auction a 5-piece set. So of my knowledge, there are only 3 sets out in the world right now. And one of them is by Francis Mullen, who is the chef that started it all for me. He's the Argentinian chef that I saw cook over fire. And Fingal is his knife maker. So all Francis Mullen's knives are by Fingal. And so he pitched to me. He's like, hey, so it was like 18 piece for Francis. And he's like, but I'm going to make 2 5-piece sets. I was going to put one in auction, and one I was thinking like, do you want it? And so I bought this knife set. Didn't even I didn't even talk to my wife, Allie, about it. I just bought it. And the next thing I knew, and I had it, and she freaked out. But it was a lot of fun. But the first one that I ever got from him, the white resin pine cone one, man, it's still sharp. I've only sharpened it once, and it was for just a couple of seconds. So yeah, honestly, that's probably my favorite knife, just because the memory and just having something that's really cool and unique and different. And so, and I always tell those stories, and people are like, how can I get knives like that? And I'm like, well, you need to know that a good quality knife, even here in the States, you need to be ready to pay some good money for, because you can get just as good of knives as him, even though he doesn't make them anymore. Here in the States, and there's some fantastic guys, especially here in Tennessee. There's a couple of guys that are making some insane knives, but don't be afraid of the price tag.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks, man. For first off, unless that's JP, you got another question for him.
No, I was going to point out that we've been about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah,
I was
I
going
was
to
gonna say, hey,
thing.
first of all, thanks for gracing us with your appearance here on the humble GBS podcast. First of all, we're all huge fans of you, dude. Every time I see your any post of yours, I become extremely hungry immediately, and it's honestly inspiring. And it makes me want to do more than just my Traeger. Which I do love my Traeger, which we did, by the way. We made burn ends today and they were fantastic. But that being said, like I thanks for coming on, man. It's been really, really cool hearing your story. And I love how like the just the correlation between, even though you're in completely kind of different field than us, you see like there's so many relations to what we do, to you do for when it comes to social media stuff, and just how much you've exploded and how much hard work it takes. Thanks for just talking to us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I know I talk probably 90% of the time, and you guys just sat there and were like, heck yeah.
That's what
we're doing. It's so much fun. It's so much better that way.
It's the best kind of podcast person.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Hey, Derek, before we get off, man, I know it's super easy, but tell everybody where they can find you, where you want them to find you, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, it's at Over the Fire Cooking or at Over the Fire Cooking by Derek Wolf. You can also go to overthefirecooking.com. And shameless plug, you can go and check out my new cookbook, Food by Fire. It's available on Amazon. Should be coming out here in May. So, yeah.
Yeah. Make sure you guys order that. I know I'm going to be ordering it as soon as we're done with this podcast. So thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.